Hey everybody, it's David Nakayama. For the best in comic entertainment, this is the Quick Critic. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. All right. Well, welcome back to the QC. I'm your host, Swanka Burnett, and I'm very happy and excited to welcome David Nakayama to the channel today. David, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys? Good to see you.
I'm doing very well. Thank you. I'm doing very well. Yeah. So I think most people watching this, especially if you're keeping up with the comics industry, no introduction necessary for David, but he's really doing comic covers for some of the most iconic characters and, working with Marvel and DC, Hasbro, video games as well. And, very well known name in the industry. So very, very happy. And it's a great pleasure to have him on today. So so we'll just kind of jump in. There's no agenda for the conversation today. Just kind of talk about your background and how you got to be so influential in the comic book industry. So can you talk a little bit about we know you worked with Marc Silvestri, we worked with Chris Claremont, these names that are kind of synonymous with the comic book industry. Can you tell us a bit about that and how they influenced you and what you might have learned from those gentlemen?
Sure. So with Chris Claremont, he's synonymous with X-Men, and I think all of us grew up reading those books. Definitely the first books I ever fell in love with were probably Claremont Lee X-Men books. So yeah, I was aware of him. And when I was doing interior comics for a few years over at Marvel, they asked me if I wanted to do this Big Hero 6 miniseries. This is way before the Disney cartoon. It was sort of an X-Men spin-off, sure. And it would be Claremont writing. So I was very happy to do a mainline Marvel book. I was very happy about Chris Claremont being involved, and that was a pretty easy yes for me.
I bet.
It ended up being the last full interior thing I ever did in comics. I went off and did 12 years in video games and came back more as a cover artist. But that project still has a very special place in my heart, not only because of what we did, but then also it happened to have become a movie, and that was cool. So all good feelings. But in terms of Mr. Claremont in particular, I liked how, he's well known for having, the characters sort of metamorphosize, from one state to another a lot. It happens throughout X-Men all the time, and a similar thing happens in Big Hero 6. So I felt like, yeah, this is familiar Claremont territory. I'm glad I get to play with these toys. It was also really cool, thinking back on it, we co-created two characters that ended up in the movie and got a credit, special thanks credit at the end of the movie because of those two characters. So that was pretty special. And I've seen him at a Comic-Con once or twice and gone up and introduced myself and told him how much I admired his work and how fun it was to do that. And so yeah, good experience. Silvestri was a totally different case. That was much earlier in my career. I was coming out of the Joe Kubert School and kind of just trying to find a way, to learn and to get jobs in the industry. And I fortunately got an internship through Wizard magazine, which was a comic book. I don't know, I'm not sure the age of your audience, but this was a very popular magazine that used to come out in comic stores. You would buy it right alongside your comics.
Right.
It doesn't seem to exist at all in any form anymore. No magazines like that really, but at the time it was really a big deal.
It was.
No joke.
It was the comics magazine, like the one
you had.
Kind of the only one, really, if you think about it. Yeah.
It was. Others came along, briefly after that, but that was the only comic magazine that I ever remember mattering, on a month-to-month basis in the comic stores.
Absolutely.
Anyway, there was a contest to get an internship at Top Cow through that magazine. I won it one year. Wow. Coming out of the Kubert School, and that's how I got the chance to be in the bullpen at Top Cow. And that was just like a really amazing time. It was like our class of people, Top Cow and Marc Silvestri in particular, really famous for picking talent. You look back at David Finch and freaking Michael Turner, just to start things off.
Absolutely.
Our class happened to be Eric Basildua, Mike Choi, Tyler Kirkham, and myself. Like,
so who's who?
I mean, these are all people you have probably heard of. It was kind of amazing. You know, we were all, I'll just speak for myself. I was a big nothing at the time.
Well, you got to start somewhere. So, you know what I mean? You got to start somewhere. How it goes. You know what I mean? You were you were applying for that Wizards internship, and then, you know, look what you're doing now. So it's a great story. And I think, you know, it's good that you're still thinking about the fact that, you know, you started off like most people, you know, just trying to claw your way up. And now, you know, you're firmly entrenched and you've made a name for yourself. So it's really an admirable story. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, no, you know, I people ask me, of course, all the time, like, how do I break in? What do I do? And it's really not a mystery. It's really just like how much stick-to-itness that you have, you know, like learning to draw isn't easy. It takes time and practice, and that's it. To learn to draw, you got to draw. To stick with it for a really long time until you finally go from terrible to competent to someday good. You know, like that, it changes at some point, and you just have to stick with it long enough. But you know, being an intern at Top Cow, it was all about trying to find time with Mr. Silvestri, and you know, like he would come by and look at everybody's pages and give notes, and that was solid gold. You know, like and he was right every single time. You know, he wouldn't just say, "Hey, that looks like crap." He would say, "This is how you fix it and why." You know, there's a reason that he was so successful in recruiting people and teaching them and bringing them up over and over again. And I don't know to what extent, like, I was ready and prepared to receive all the information. You know, like I wish I had been where I am now. I think the things he would have said would sink in all the more because my brain is like more prepared to handle it. Sure. But I did my best.
Sure. No, I think that it's really cool to hear you talk about, you know, getting feedback from Marc and kind of being at a point where you're still honing your craft, because for most of us as comic readers, you know, we see the finished product and we see your artwork and it's amazing, and we see, you know, you name an artist, and we don't get to necessarily see the pains and the struggles and, you know, the process of honing your craft. So it's kind of cool to just hear some of that background and how you kind of got from being someone that's learning how to be an artist to being someone who is, you know, heavily sought after like you are now. So, yeah.
I think it's a good point. You know, sometimes my kids will look at what I do and they'll be like, well, I could never do that. I'm like, wait. When I was your age, you should see what I was drawing. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. It's very hard for people to understand the years of process that it takes. Sure. You know, to be good at anything. Like if you want to be like a kung fu expert or play guitar or whatever it is, it's going to take years.
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, you know, that rings, I think that rings true just in general, but also just for me personally. You know, I'm a freelance, I have a career, but I'm also trying to become a freelance writer. And that's why I started the QC, you know, in 2020, and just trying to get writing credits and develop a platform. So I understand what you're saying as far as like, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and things that go into it. And it's not just an overnight thing. You know, I don't think there's too many people that just wake up and just can draw the way you can draw. You know what I mean? It's something that, you know, you systematically kind of got there through work and effort and putting in the time. So I think that's a good message.
I think so. I think that's the critical one. Unless you're Joe Madureira, in which case you're just born awesome, but we can't all be Joe Madureira.
What were some of the titles you were working on at Top Cow?
Gosh, like mostly I did a couple of Witchblades here and there. But the vast majority of it was this book called City of Heroes, which was based on a very popular MMO at the time. Right. The beginning of MMOs in America, you know, Warcraft and City of Heroes began at the exact same time, same month, same day, something like that. And if you were in comics at the time, you definitely knew this game. Like popular writers and artists were playing this game. Sure. And it was a big deal. And Top Cow went after the license to do the comic that they distributed free to subscribers. I did the pitch art for it. We were successful. We got it. And so I drew the, many issues of the series for about a year. By the end, I was only doing covers, but there was a sweet spot in the middle where I did both the cover and the interior art, and that was special to me. It was the first time that ever happened in my career. So fond memories of that. When it was all done, the game company actually invited me to go do concept art for the game, and I did that for years, and it was the way I got into the video game industry, where I spent the next 12 years. So it ended up being a pretty important, change of direction in my life.
Sure. And now I know, and obviously we know you're primarily a cover artist now, but are you considering or weighing options as far as like doing more stuff with video games? Is that something still on your periphery, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm actively doing it, actually. One of the beautiful things about being a freelance artist is that I can take work from anywhere. And so right now, this month, I have clients in comics, toys, games, and magazines. It's a very diverse and busy month, and I love that about freelance.
That's great. That's great. So you and I, just some looking at your Wikipedia, we're pretty much the same age. So I'm curious, who are some of the artists that you were inspired by when you were growing up, or that you were reading that really influenced the work that you do?
Sure. I mean, I have to imagine they're very similar to yours. Who didn't love Jim Lee and continue to, who doesn't continue to love Jim Lee? That guy just keeps getting better and better, unbelievably. So many artists kind of peak. But no, he seems to get better all the time. And he is the reason I got interested in the hobby in the first place. Over time, I discovered people like Adam Hughes and J. Scott Campbell and Kevin Nolan, Joe Madureira, obviously. When I got into games, I sort of discovered an entirely different kind of digital artwork that I wasn't really aware of in comics. And I always tell people, like, your style is that mix of all the stuff that you like. So I think if you look close enough, you'll see little bits and pieces of all that stuff mixed up into what I do.
Yeah, no, I was looking over some of your art prior to our conversation today, and in my notes I was writing to myself that the artwork, it really leaps off the page and really conveys a sense of energy and fun. And a funny thing is, I grabbed a few of these issues here, from which will be familiar to you. Like a lot of people in our age bracket, I grew up watching the X-Men cartoon, and really those characters and those designs are iconic for a reason, right? And yeah. I remember, and this is literally from just a box of comics that I have in my bedroom. And I remember there were years ago, I saw these on literally in the comic book shop, and I was like, wow, whoever drew this really understands that cartoon really well. Of course, this is before I knew who you were, but I picked these up, and it's really funny. I was going back, and I was like, man, I got to find these before I talk to David, because I literally saw these. I was like, I need to pick these up, and they're actually really good. The writing is really good as well. So yeah, no, I think that's really cool, and I admire your work a ton, a ton, and the people that I'm following in a lot of cases are doing comic book stuff or movie stuff. I'm constantly seeing your artwork popping up, and I'm like, hey, that's David. I'm talking to him later this month. So yeah, so I think it's really great, and I think we're all really excited for what you're working on next. Can you talk a little bit about some of those projects?
Well, let's see. I'm doing some illustration that will become an animated video for a video game marketing campaign. So very excited about that. Can't tell you what yet. Sure. Still doing covers for both Marvel and DC this month, which is very new and exciting for me. Let's see what else. Definitely got some Hasbro stuff. Gonna do a tutorial, a how to draw magazine tutorial for one of my favorite, all-time favorite magazines on the topic. So that I'm really excited about. Just a lot of stuff going on. I gotta be really diligent this month. We have MegaCon coming up next month, and all this stuff has to be done and out the door, before I can possibly leave. So sure. My calendar is going to be it's going to be very important to stick to it. Right.
Well, hey, busy is good, right? So MegaCon, yeah, absolutely. So MegaCon, that sounds like that's going to be in person. So things are kind of getting back to normal a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like if I'm vaccinated, and the state of the disease right now is that you're pretty much good to go if you're vaccinated.
Sure. So
I feel finally safe enough to go do that. We've had smaller trips here and there, but this will be the longest one in a while. Certainly the first comic show in well over a year. The last one I went to was C2E2 in February, over a year ago.
Sure.
So this will be nice. It'll be really good. And I'll be with my good buddies at Unknown Comics at their booth. So that'll be really fun to see them. And we'll see. It's just like, what is it going to be like? You know, I imagine they might have fewer people, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's like everyone wants to come out for the first chance they can. Who knows? Yeah. But it'll be fun either way.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm looking forward to you know, getting back into doing more of the face-to-face stuff, because it just really just went away for quite a long time. So as far as, so we know, you know, obviously you just did the Hellfire stuff, and you've done, you know, X-Men, you've done, you know, pretty much all the iconic characters there are to draw. But is there anybody you haven't drawn yet that you're really looking forward to drawing, or characters that you really lean into and say, I really enjoy drawing Rogue, for example? I particularly like your Rogue artwork. So is there anybody in particular you like, or you want to draw that you haven't drawn yet?
Well, you know, I always explain it as if it was something that I grew up with and I was reading everything, you know, when I was growing up. So if it was Marvel at all, DC at all, anything on, you know, cartoons and television, you know, Western or Japanese, all that stuff is like, feels permanently embedded in my heart in some way. So I have this like infinite nostalgia drive to do stuff. So I will never, ever get tired of those things. I missed Pokemon. I kind of, you know, there's certain things I didn't really grow up with.
Same.
Am I still kind of casually interested in it? Yes, I am. I like it, but it's not the same as like that thing that you watch when you're 10 years old or something like that. That's like in your heart forever. So for that reason, I would always want to do Marvel, DC, you know, 90s stuff. What have I not drawn yet? I think what I haven't really done a lot yet that I would like to is all of DC. First of all, I've only done a handful of covers for DC. Really just scratched the top of that. So I would love to try more of that. And over at Marvel, I haven't really done covers, like, especially in a continuing way for some of my top characters. So for example, like my dream job would be like a run of Captain America covers, you know, like a bunch in a row. And that's, you know, that's bucket list, daydreaming, pie in the sky kind of stuff for me. You know, it's been Alex Ross for a long time doing that kind of stuff. So do I think I'm on level with Alex Ross? No, I don't. But nonetheless, that is what my heart wants to do. So we'll see, maybe someday.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always good to dream big, and you know, I'd certainly be excited to see that. Just as you were talking, you were talking about, you know, when you were 10 and things we were kind of enjoying when we were younger. And I really would like to see, just personally, I would like to see you drawing Power Rangers. I'm not sure if that's something you see yourself doing in the future, but I'd be very curious to see your rendition of, you know, like the Green Ranger or the White Ranger or something like that. So I think that'd be cool.
Stay tuned. Wink.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. All right. So David, you know, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and updating us on what you're doing and talking a little bit about your experience working with some of these equally amazing names in the industry. Make sure that you keeping up with David on his website. I'll have all that stuff on screen, Instagram as well. And I think those are good places to keep up with what you're doing. Absolutely. Instagram's, I feel like my home base on the internet and social media. So definitely come by there. Also Twitter, also ArtStation. I'm frequently on there, less so on the other platforms, but I'm easy to find under my own name. Sure. Good stuff. Well, yeah, thank you again, David. Make sure you're keeping up with the QC, of course, thequickcritic.com. Links to all our social media on there, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And yeah, David, thank you again. And hope to have you on again sometime in the future. Certainly my pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me on. Absolutely. Thanks again.